The prepaid cell phone sat at the bottom of my makeup drawer, hidden beneath old lipsticks I'd stopped wearing 20 years ago. It was one of those cheap flip phones you could buy at a gas station for $30, and I'd paid for it with quarters I'd been saving from the laundry machine in our building. When my husband, Charles, asked why I seemed distant that Wednesday afternoon, why I kept checking the time, why my hands were shaking while I folded his shirts, I thought about that phone. And for the first time in 15 years, I looked him straight in the eye and lied without hesitation. I told him I was just tired from the heat, but that phone held numbers he could never know about. Not yet. It started the way poison works, slowly, one drop at a time, until your whole system is contaminated. We'd been married 42 years when Charles retired from the post office. I thought we'd finally travel, maybe visit my daughter in Seattle, take that cruise to Alaska we'd always talked about. Instead, retirement gave him a new full-time job, managing me. "Eleanor, why did you drive to the library on Tuesday? There's nothing wrong with our books at home. Who was that woman you were talking to at the pharmacy? What were you discussing? Why do you need new reading glasses? Those are perfectly fine. You're just being wasteful." At first, I told myself he was adjusting. 42 years of routes and schedules, and now he had nothing but time. He'd been in control of mail, addresses, deliveries. Now he needed something else to organize, to manage, to supervise. I thought it would pass once he found a hobby. But Charles's hobby became me. He took over our bank accounts completely, saying that since he'd always handled the bills, there was no reason to change now. He closed the checking account my father had helped me open when I was 19, the one I'd kept separate all these years for my personal expenses. Everything went into his account. My Social Security check, the small pension from my 30 years as a school secretary, all of it direct deposited into an account with only his name on it. He gave me $75 every 2 weeks for groceries and personal items. If I needed more, I had to ask. If I asked, I had to explain. $32 for hand cream and vitamins? Eleanor, store brand is half that price. What are you doing, trying to bankrupt us? Coffee with your book club? We have a coffee maker right here. Why are you wasting money sitting in a cafe? A birthday card for Susan? You can make one. You've got paper and markers. I stopped going to book club. I stopped meeting my friend Susan for our monthly lunch. I stopped volunteering at the elementary school library where I'd worked for decades. It was easier than explaining why I couldn't chip in $5 for a group gift, why I couldn't afford a cup of coffee, why I had to account for every quarter. Charles started checking the mail before I could get to it. He screened my phone calls, saying he was trying to protect me from scammers. He asked to see my email because we're married, we shouldn't have secrets. He knew where I was every minute because I was always home, always cleaning, always cooking, always waiting for him to decide what we'd do next, where we'd go, if we'd go anywhere at all. The apartment became my entire world, and he was the sun it revolved around. "You worked hard for 30 years, he'd said when I retired at 62. "Now you can relax. I'll handle everything." And he did handle everything. He handled my independence, my friendships, my connection to anyone who might have noticed what was happening. He did it so gradually that I didn't realize I was disappearing until there was almost nothing left of Eleanor Thompson. The breaking point came on a Friday morning in August. I was 67 years old, standing in the pharmacy on Grant Street, crying in front of the prescription counter. My blood pressure medication had run out, and I'd forgotten to pick up the refill the week before. I had $60 for 2 weeks of groceries, gas, and everything else. The prescription was $47. I stood there for 15 minutes trying to decide if I should skip the medication and hope my pressure stayed stable, or buy it and figure out how to stretch $13 for 2 weeks of food. The pharmacist, a young woman named Amy, watched me count and recount the bills in my wallet. "Ma'am, are you okay?" she asked gently. "Do you need to call someone?" I nodded automatically, wiping my eyes. "I'm fine, dear, just being silly about money." But Amy didn't move on to the next customer. She looked at my hands, how they trembled holding those worn $20 bills. She looked at my clothes, a nice blouse from 15 years ago, carefully maintained but faded. My purse, good quality once, now held together with a safety pin where the strap had torn. "Mrs. Thompson," she said quietly, reading my name from the prescription bottle. "I'm going to step away for a moment. When I come back, I'm going to give you a card for a place that might be able to help. Will you wait?" She returned with a business card pressed into my palm. Helen Kowalski, MSW. Elder Services Advocate. A phone number. An address on Oak Street, just 6 blocks from my apartment. "My grandmother," Amy said, her voice barely a whisper. "She went through something similar. This woman helped her. Please, just keep the card." I bought the medication, took the card, and walked the 8 blocks home because Charles had the car for his Thursday poker game, the only regular appointment he kept that took him away for more than an hour. I hid Helen's card in my old recipe box, tucked inside the index card for my mother's pound cake, a recipe I hadn't made in 10 years because Charles said it was too expensive. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Amy's grandmother, about what something similar meant, about whether this was really happening or if I was overreacting. At 4 in the morning, I went to the kitchen and pulled out the recipe box. The card fell into my hand. I traced the embossed lettering with my finger. Oak Street. I knew where that was. The next Friday, while Charles was at his weekly breakfast with his old postal service colleagues, a 2-hour commitment he never missed, I walked to Oak Street. Elder Services was in a small office building, tucked between a tax preparer and a dental office. I walked past it 3 times before I gathered the courage to go inside. The reception area was quiet, painted a soft green. A woman about my age sat behind a desk and smiled when I entered. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for Helen Kowalski." My voice sounded strange, like I'd forgotten how to talk to people. "Let me check if she's available." "Your name?" "Eleanor." "Eleanor Thompson." Helen came out 5 minutes later. She was younger than I expected, maybe 50, with gray-streaked hair and kind eyes. "Eleanor, I'm glad you're here. Come on back." We sat in a small office with a window overlooking a courtyard. Helen made tea and waited while I tried to find words for something I'd never said out loud. Finally, they came tumbling out. 15 years of slowly losing control, of being monitored, of living on $75 every 2 weeks while Charles spent freely on poker nights and his expensive bourbon collection and golf outings with his friends, of becoming invisible in my own life. "I know this sounds ridiculous," I said, my voice breaking. "He's never hit me. He's never even yelled. It's abuse," Helen said firmly. "Financial abuse is real. Isolation is real. What you're describing is coercive control, Eleanor, and it's serious." I started crying then. Deep sobs that came from somewhere I'd kept locked away for years. Helen handed me tissues and waited. "Have you thought about what you want to do?" she asked gently. "I can't leave." The words were automatic. "I don't have any money. He controls everything. My daughter lives in Seattle, and we haven't talked in 5 years because Charles always finds a reason I can't call her. She probably thinks I don't care about her anymore." "Eleanor." Helen's voice was kind but firm. "You can leave. It won't be easy, but you can, and we can help you." Over the next 2 months, I visited Helen every Friday. We made a plan, a real plan. First, I needed documents. Birth certificate, social security card, marriage license, bank statements, the title to our paid-off car that Charles kept in his name only. He kept everything in a locked file box in the bedroom closet. It took me 4 Fridays to find where he hid the key taped inside an old shoebox on the top shelf. On the 5th Friday, while Charles was at breakfast, I took everything to the FedEx store 3 blocks away and made copies. My hands shook so hard the clerk asked if I needed help. Every time the door opened, I thought it was Charles, but I got copies of everything and returned the originals before he came home. Second, I needed money. Helen connected me with a lawyer named Patricia Vance, who worked with the Elder Advocacy Program. She was barely 40, energetic and sharp. She explained that I had legal rights to our assets, that I could petition for emergency support during a separation. "But first," Patricia said, "you need to be somewhere safe. You need to leave." That was the terrifying part. Where would I go? Helen knew a woman named Dorothy who ran a residential program for seniors in transition. It was a converted duplex with 4 small apartments, all for women over 60 who were rebuilding their lives. It wasn't fancy, just a bedroom, tiny kitchenette, and bathroom, but it was safe. Dorothy had seen enough women like me that she didn't ask questions. $85 a week, utilities included. I could afford 1 week with the emergency $40 I'd found in an old winter coat pocket, and the $50 Helen quietly pressed into my hand. "You'll pay me back by helping the next woman," Helen said when I tried to refuse. "That's how this works." The suitcase came from Dorothy's storage room. "Left behind by someone who moved on to better things," Dorothy said, handing me a small black roller bag. "You will too." I brought it home hidden in a reusable grocery bag from the library. I put it in the back corner of my closet, behind the winter coats we never needed in Phoenix. And slowly, over 4 weeks, I filled it. 2 pairs of pants, 3 blouses, underwear, socks, my mother's wedding ring that Charles didn't know I'd kept, the photo album from before we were married, my grandmother's silver brush. Everything that mattered fit in that small suitcase with room to spare. 67 years of life, and everything precious enough to take fit in a bag I could carry with one hand. Patricia filed papers for legal separation and temporary spousal support. The papers would be served to Charles at the apartment, but I wouldn't be there when it happened. We chose a Wednesday. Charles had a doctor's appointment at 10 in the morning for his annual physical, something that usually took 3 hours with all the blood work and waiting. He'd be gone long enough. The night before, I lay next to him in the bed we'd shared for 42 years, listening to him snore, and I felt nothing. No love, no anger, no sadness. Just a vast, quiet relief that this was almost over. Wednesday morning, I made him breakfast like always. Scrambled eggs, wheat toast, black coffee. He read the news on his tablet and complained about the gas prices. I washed the dishes. I handed him his keys when he left. He didn't kiss me goodbye. He hadn't in years. I waited 10 minutes. Then I pulled the suitcase from the closet. My hands were steady. I walked through the apartment one last time, this place where I'd lived for 18 years, the kitchen where I'd cooked tens of thousands of meals, the living room where I'd stopped watching my favorite shows because Charles found them stupid, the bedroom where I'd forgotten what it felt like to be wanted. I didn't take pictures off the walls. I didn't leave a note. Patricia had advised against it. Don't give him ammunition. Don't explain. Just go. Dorothy's friend Margaret was waiting downstairs in her car. She'd volunteered to drive me because Helen was with another client and Dorothy couldn't leave the building. Margaret was 75, a retired librarian with white hair and bright blue eyes. "Ready?" she asked. I put the suitcase in her trunk. Ready. I didn't look back at the building. Dorothy's place was on Maple Avenue in a neighborhood I'd never been to, even though it was only 3 miles from my apartment. She met us at the door and showed me to my unit. It was small, with a single bed, a dresser, a tiny kitchen area with a microwave and 2-burner stove, and a window that looked out on a shared courtyard. There was a reading chair in the corner and a small bookshelf already filled with paperbacks. "Bathroom's all yours in this unit," Dorothy said. "Shared laundry in the basement. There are 3 other women here right now. Good people. You'll meet them at dinner tonight. 6 o'clock in the common room. You're welcome to join us or eat in your room, whatever you're comfortable with." After she left, I sat on the bed and cried. Not from fear, from relief so profound it felt like being able to breathe for the first time in years. I was safe. For the first time in 15 years, I was safe. Charles called my cell phone 63 times that afternoon. I'd left the phone behind, but Patricia told me later when she went with a police escort to retrieve some of my belongings. He'd called Elder Services 12 times. He'd called the police claiming I was a missing person with dementia until Patricia informed them I was 70 years old, mentally competent, and had left voluntarily. He'd called my daughter Jennifer in Seattle, a number he'd had all along but never let me use. Jennifer immediately called Patricia's office in tears, saying she'd been trying to reach me for years, sending letters that she now realized Charles had intercepted. The papers were served to Charles at the apartment by a sheriff's deputy on Thursday morning. According to Patricia, he tried to refuse them, claiming there was a mistake, that his wife would never leave him, that someone had manipulated me. The deputy explained that wasn't how legal documents worked. The separation process took months. Charles fought everything: the division of assets, my request for temporary support, my petition for half the value of the car. He claimed I'd abandoned him, that I was suffering from dementia, that I'd stolen from him. His lawyer tried to paint me as confused, unstable, the victim of manipulation by so-called advocates. But Patricia had the documentation, the closed account, the $75 every 2 weeks, while our bank statements showed Charles spending $300 a month on entertainment, the isolation from friends and family, the complete financial control. Judge Sandra Martinez, a woman in her 60s who'd probably seen every manipulation tactic in existence, wasn't impressed with Charles's story. The divorce was finalized on a Friday in March. 9 months after I'd walked out, I got half of everything. The retirement accounts, the savings, half the value of the car, which Charles would have to refinance or sell to pay me my share. I got spousal support of $2,000 a month until my Social Security and pension provided enough to live on. I got my freedom. I kept living at Dorothy's place, even though I could afford my own apartment now. I liked having people around. I liked eating dinner with women who understood what it meant to start over. I liked having Dorothy's wisdom available whenever I needed it, and I liked being able to offer my own experience to the new women who came through. Jennifer flew out from Seattle the week after the divorce was final. We sat in Dorothy's courtyard and cried and laughed and filled in 5 years of missed conversations. She told me about her 2 teenagers, her job as a nurse practitioner, her vegetable garden. I told her about the part-time job I'd gotten at the public library, shelving books and helping with the senior reading program. It didn't pay much, but it was mine. "Mom, why didn't you call me?" Jennifer asked, her voice breaking. "I would have bought you a plane ticket. You could have lived with us." "I know, sweetheart," I said. I was ashamed, and after a while I forgot I had the right to ask for help. Last Friday, I went to Elder Services for my volunteer training. I'm going to help other women the way Helen helped me. I'll sit in that small office with the courtyard window and make tea and tell them, "You can leave. It won't be easy, but you can. And we're here to help you." Helen hugged me when I arrived. "I'm so proud of you, Eleanor." "I'm proud of me too," I said. 67 years old, and I finally learned that it's never too late to save your own life. That dignity isn't something someone allows you to have. It's something you reclaim. I still have that black roller suitcase. It sits in my closet at Dorothy's, empty now. Sometimes I look at it and remember the woman who packed it with trembling hands, who wasn't sure she had the courage to leave, who thought maybe she was overreacting, maybe she was being ungrateful, maybe this was just what marriage looked like after 42 years. I want to tell her,